Welcome, and thanks for joining us. My name is Rupert Bonham-Carter. I'm the Chief Customer Success Officer here at Klipfolio, and I'm joined by Zach Kath-Nelson. He's our Director of Growth. We're both intimately familiar with the Salesforce.com Klipfolio story, and we'll be your experts today. In the early 2000s, I was part of a software company that deployed Salesforce.com for the first time. It was one of the first software as a service cloud offerings. It was an upstart at the time, but as many small to medium-sized companies were doing at the time, deploying new technology around customer relationship management, Salesforce automation, and the like. So, fast forward 17 years, I'm now part of a startup of my own, and if we can call Klipfolio a startup anymore, I guess. And we're actually using Salesforce.com as a core engine for our growth. And as we're also a dashboarding company, obviously we use our own technology with Salesforce.com. So in the presentation today, we're going to talk a little bit about not only how we use Salesforce as a company, but also how we use Klipfolio with Salesforce, as well as how customers and prospects can use the combination of the two solutions together to drive maximum business value and outcomes. So, if I remember back to those days in the early 2000s, the main value of a customer relationship management or Salesforce automation tool was, to capture a single version of the truth. And we'll get into that part of the story later. What you'll also see is that as time has worn on, those core CRM systems also became a great place to store, data from other systems. And that's certainly the story we've got. So what we're going to look at today, is that story. But before we do that, why the combination of Klipfolio and Salesforce? Clearly, the opportunity to monitor the health of your business in near real time is something that's germane to all of the Klipfolio value proposition. Something that's not missed on many of our customers is that Klipfolio is a very affordable way to use that valuable data you've stored in Salesforce and make it available to all parts of the company for a fraction of the cost of, for instance, adding agents in Salesforce. We give our teams the right information at the right time to derive the right business outcomes. And having a sales leaderboard or a sales dashboard or a forecasting dashboard really allows you to create a sense of urgency and competition within your sales teams. Our integration, we're super proud of it, and we're passionate about it mostly because we use it every day ourselves, and so we know how powerful and flexible it is and how much business value that we are deriving from it. So as a Salesforce customer, and a user of Klipfolio, we think we have a great blueprint to show you how to succeed if you're not already doing that with the combination of the two technologies. So let's jump right into it. Most of the presentation, by the way, is going to actually be Zach taking us through real live demos of what we've built and how we've built it. And then we're going to have a really healthy opportunity for questions and answers and dialogue later on in the presentation. So at a 30,000 foot view, this is the simplified, and I call these marketecture diagrams, a view of what we're doing internally at Klipfolio. These are some of the systems on the left-hand side that we use. We're a big Marketo user for marketing automation. All of our help center and ticketing system is Zendesk. We use Zuora for online billing. Obviously, our own application is feeding into Salesforce. And we have a very vibrant online chat community that many of you, certainly customers and people trying Klipfolio, have used. So, some companies would take the data from all those systems and build sort of a data mart or a data warehouse. And for a larger company, that makes sense. You can certainly optimize the data for analytics and reporting and that sort of thing. We're in the business really of monitoring data in near real time. And so, putting it in a secondary data structure, there is sort of a pay me now or pay me later concept as it comes to the monitoring of real-time data. And so we've gone with let's choose one system where we can sync everything and pull the data out of. And for us and many companies, certainly small medium business companies, they've chosen their CRM system, and with us that is Salesforce.com. So Salesforce is a great platform for allowing you to integrate data from all of those systems on the left, and we have a very talented team of individuals here at Klipfolio that do those integrations. And as we think about running better customer success at Klipfolio, we're able to open Salesforce.com and see all of the rich data that we collect from those systems on the left in that single version of the truth right in Salesforce.com. So, and that's a tool that we use every day. All of the agents in my team in Success use Salesforce. We're logging into it every day. We're consuming the data in Salesforce at an agent or an individual account or lead level. And we're also sharing that data and consuming that data with ourselves and other members of the company using Klipfolio dashboards. And therein lies the real meat of the story. Zach will take you through the details of this, but we've got 3 real basic ways you can get data from Salesforce into Klipfolio. One, you can consume data or integrate data using Klipfolio or Salesforce reports. The second way is using a SOQL query, which is the native query language for Salesforce.com. And finally, we do actually have, for new customers or people trialing Klipfolio, an ability to pull pre-built clips that come soup to nuts with data sources right out of Salesforce.com with just an authentication. Okay, so we're going to talk about and demonstrate a number of these things. The key thing is that once you get the data in consumable data sets or packages from Klipfolio, they can then be pulled into the Klipfolio editor, which we call the Clip Editor, and from there the magic can happen. You can monitor data in almost near real time, getting fed from Salesforce.com. You can mash that data with other services, and you can then push it out to large numbers of individuals in many different ways. And we're going to talk about that entire story as we go through. So here are 4 dashboards, in fact, that are all modeled on actual dashboards we use internally at Klipfolio. They're not obviously our data, because some of it would include customer information, which we can't share with you. But I can tell you unequivocally that definitely 3 of the 4 are modeled exactly from our dashboards that we're using internally. And we use them every minute of every day. As the leader of customer success, I'm responsible for revenue, support and services, and certainly the revenue side of the picture is the main topic of today. The top left is modeled on the board that lives in our sales division inside of Klipfolio, and it's refreshing in 15-minute intervals. Now it could be set up to refresh literally as the data changes using sort of an automated trigger integration with Salesforce, but we find every 15 minutes is more than enough. And we can force the update anytime we like manually in the Clip Editor. The bottom left is a sales leaderboard. We're going to show you actually how easy it would be for you to create a sales leaderboard as part of the demonstrations that Zach is going to take us through. And then the top right is a customer churn dashboard. And we're in the software as a service business. So for us, it's how many new customers do we have? How much expansion have we got? How much reduction do we have, and how many cancellations do we have? And how does that stuff all match together over time to tell us how the business is going? Okay, so those are 4 examples of dashboards that are pulling data directly from Salesforce to feed clips for dashboards that we're then using. Each of these clips inside these dashboards, the square boxes for people inside Klipfolio would know this, but for the new people, those are clips, visualizations, widgets, depending on what you want to call them. And these are, when you consume them, can be consumed in, for instance, an iOS or an Android handheld device. And each clip itself then would render inside the device. And so if you think about monitoring your sales data on an ongoing basis, say out in the field, it's a really great way to consume a dashboard that would be up on the wall back at home or on a handheld device when you're out in the field. Okay, if you want to go.
Yeah, I would just add really quick, the level of utilization on these is massive, and we love seeing it. So that bottom left leaderboard, for instance, so we've got a few of these rotating, like Rupert mentioned, on a wall board in our section of the office. So they're rotating on their own every 90 seconds or so. But the leaderboard is something that we've noticed a few of our team members constantly keep up on their second monitor. These are competitive individuals. They always want to know how they're stacking up and how they're performing. They've been working on a deal. They know it comes in. They want to see it reflect on the board. So we love seeing that. And that top left one, that sort of shows the all-up performance. On our production version, we've got clearly differentiated visuals and charts for today, this month, and this quarter. And sort of we on the success side, the sales side especially, we sort of know where we're at. We like looking at the little pictograph where new people are popping up showing sales today. But outside of that, we know where we're at in the month largely, in a given day, and in the quarter. But what I love seeing, and it happens constantly, is members of other teams, like the dev team, for instance, sort of walk slowly by our section of the office and sort of take a peek and see where we're at. And that's a huge part of the Salesforce story. We live in Salesforce, we live and breathe it every day, but other teams don't. And the dev team and the marketing team and UX and product management, they play such a massive role in the success of the company, but they're not talking to customers all day, every day, and they're not seeing and thinking revenue all day, every day. So exposing this data to them is huge value. I know they like it, and I love seeing it.
So we've got a couple of other great examples here. These are pictures from actual customers of ours who've, taken the dashboards, put them up on wall boards inside their organizations, and have shared the images of those with us. And we love to get these pictures, by the way. So if you yourself either are doing this or aspire to do this, once you get your dashboard up on the wall, we'd love you to snap a quick picture and send it to us at success@klipfolio.com, and we'll make it part of our repertoire of proud things we display. We have a simple motto in the success team, which is think like a customer. So we always go forward to this moment and say, what is the dashboard they're trying to build? How are they trying to build it? How is it supposed to work to drive the right business outcomes for you, the customer? So send us those pictures if you have them.
So I saw a hand raised a moment ago. So a really good question here from Ivan. And we might tackle this later, but let me know if you want to hit it now. What is the best approach to connect the TV screens to Klipfolio?
We'll actually cover that later on, Ivan. So in the presentation itself, we do have a section where we'll talk about that.
Perfect. Lots of good options around that. So we'll make sure to hit it. So we'll dig deeper into this in a couple minutes. On the architecture slide that showed some of the platforms we're integrating with Klipfolio. There are a number of integration options. We'll walk through those in detail. So one more quick slide, and then we'll hop right into the app and show a few things. So perfect. So like Rupert mentioned, the right half of that slide was around integration options, how to get your data into Klipfolio. And from a high level, there's actually 4 ways. I want to talk mostly about 3 of them. The fourth is some of the pre-built content. And we'll show that quickly. It's a great way to get started really quick. But because of how customizable Salesforce is, and the majority of Salesforce deployments so heavily customized and tailored to specific business needs, the pre-built content often falls short because of that. I see a hand raised. Any questions at all? Chime in anytime, and we'll be happy to.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be sharing the slides as well as a video recording of the presentation, guys. So don't worry about that. All of these slides will be made available to everybody who registered and attended, as well as a recording of the audio and visual part.
Perfect. So 3 main ways I would call out to get custom data from Salesforce into Klipfolio, and then work with it to build your own dashboard. So the first 2 ways involve working with reports in Salesforce. I love the Salesforce reporting engine. It's simple, powerful, flexible, intuitive, and because of how open Salesforce is, generally speaking, you can get data in the way you want. Tabular reports is one way. Summary reports is another way. That's where we're doing some of the grouping and aggregation on the Salesforce side. And SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language, is the third way. A little bit more complexity to it, although a lot of users are really comfortable and familiar with it already. It can seem scary to some brand new users, but we'll walk through a few tips around it and see how we can help out. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time on where we would go when we would use each of these options in a quick moment. So for the purposes of our chat today, I put together a quick dashboard to look at. All in all, I did spend a fair amount of time trying to decide what data I wanted to show. And like Rupert mentioned, we obviously don't want to show customer names, and so I settled on tasks, activities. But I actually think in doing this would be a really nice activity board for someone like myself to just monitor the activity level of the team, especially approaching the end of the quarter. And again, Rupert covered the business side of things, but the technical value is huge and it's simple. Through Salesforce, you can get access to all of the data you want to work with. Generally, it's easy to access this data. There's different routes you can take depending on what you need and how you want to show it. And all in all, it's really clean and simple. So I want to quickly call out a few small things on this board, and I'm specifically I want to talk about the different types of data that we're working with here. We're staying about 1,000 feet up still at this point. So firstly, let's look at this top left clip. So this is just showing the number of tasks month to date. So the only piece of data that I need for this visualization is one number, maybe two numbers. I want to know how many tasks we've done so far this month, and I want to know a target. And if I'm keeping track of targets in like a Google Sheet, I can pull that in separately. But for the number of tasks month to date, I really just need one number, the total sum. I don't need to know that someone completed 10 on one day with one customer. I just need that one number. So we call that summarized data. In Salesforce, summary data is a term you'll often hear. And most of the charts on this dashboard are similar. So here we're talking about 80 tasks in a week. I've summarized the number of tasks for last week too, so there's a few different levels, maybe some summarization happening by date. Down in these charts, I'm summarizing it by sales rep. So this time it's 4 numbers, but I don't need that record level data. I don't need anything about customer names, anything about specific dates or times, the types of activities that are happening. It's just that one summarized number.
So Zach, could I just quickly point out that although you've used tasks here for this demonstration, that clearly most of you will be building dashboards based on sales, number of sales, amount of revenue. So anywhere you see tasks here, think sales, think revenue, because I think really if you're to do that, then you can quickly see how this would be your sales dashboard, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we looked at in the boards that we're showcasing publicly, those are all around revenue. So it's just any metric visualized and showcased in the way you want. In this case, tasks summarized in a few different ways. So think of that top left clip and all these other clips compared to this one at the bottom right. So this one is showing the newest accounts that we've brought on board. We've got a start date for these accounts, the account rep they're working with, specific number of tasks for that one. So this is a little bit different. This is not summarized data. This is what I would call detailed data, because I do want to know this for every row. Specifically, I want to know the number of tasks that we've completed with all these new customers. One pretty cool thing that we've done over here is we're actually linking to the Salesforce record. And I can show you how I set this up maybe a little bit later. But we do this on a lot of our boards. We're linking right into Salesforce. And so we can monitor more closely what we're seeing on the board. So with those two sort of different types of data in mind, I wanted to show you that because it's really important and helpful to think of the use case. Think of your goal. What data do I want to show? Who's going to be looking at this? If this is on a board in my section of the office, and I'm doing it to sort of free this data and make it available to our dev team walking by, they probably don't need to see that detailed info. They're not going to click on that link and go into Salesforce. They want to see a summarized number. Total this month, this week, this quarter, total by rep, things like that. So really, really helpful to think of that. So let's hop into Salesforce and let's look at more closely the 3 different ways of getting data in. And again, any questions at all, chime in anytime and we'll do our best to help out. So, like I mentioned, the reporting engine in Salesforce, really, really powerful and flexible. The first thing I would encourage you to look at is the type of report and think about the type of report you want. If I want to pull in data on leads, I'm going to look at a report that is on the leads object. Salesforce has a lot of these reports just pre-built and provided to you out of the box. A lot of organizations, are us included, we've got a few individuals who are highly skilled. They help creating some of these custom report types. Really quick, and not to get into the weeds on it, Salesforce separates information into what they call objects. So if I want to look at detailed data on a lead, that lives in the lead object. If I want to then relate that against maybe subscription or billing data, that might live in a different object, and you might need some help creating a report type that combines those two objects for you so you can look at them side by side. So I'm going to choose the leads report type, and we'll just see if we can do something simple here. So I want to get rid of some of these fields here. I'm going to keep lead owner and first name, but I'll remove a few of these others. And I'll switch this, a few simple filters at the top can help me get what I'm looking for. So, this is another reason why this engine is so powerful. It's so simple to get the data that you're looking for. So a lot of preset date options are going to keep this dynamic. So if I choose this month, I'm always going to be fetching data just from this month. It doesn't matter that we're the 29th. As soon as we roll over to July, this report type is going to automatically give me some July data. And I'm going to pull in a few metrics that I'm interested in. So maybe the number of clips that each of these potential customers has loaded into their account, and let's say the number of tasks, again, that each of our team members has provided. And let's actually, let's keep this month for now. So I'm going to run this report. So this is going to be the data that's returned to me. And actually, let's change this. Let's make this yesterday. Perfect. So now I've got what I would call this detailed info. I see all the data on every row. So I can see that this individual right here loaded 8 clips and we've not yet spoken to them. If I scroll all the way down, I'll see how many records are returned here. So I would use a report like this, or this is one option rather, where I need that granular level of data, but it's a smallish data set. Let's go back to that last filter I had. If I make this month, then take a look at what happens here. So right at the top of the screen, I see a little note. 2,000 of the nearly 10,000 records are being displayed below. If I want to see the full data set, export it to CSV or Excel. That's something you need to be really, really mindful of. So in this large data set, I'll save this. Well, I'll just tell you what would happen actually. If I saved this and tried to pull it into Klipfolio, then we are bound by this limitation as well. The Salesforce API is going to return 2,000 of these records and 2,000 only. So in other words, it's going to ignore about 80% of the data that I'm looking for. So with a report in Salesforce, it's important to know that you are bound by a limit of 2,000 rows to be returned. So if I want detailed data, if it's a small amount, I'm going to use a report. If it's a larger amount, like something like this, I'm going to get to that in a couple minutes and I'll show you how I would operate. But if we go back to our board, remember the fact that the vast majority of this is summarized data. So here's a nice approach I would take with summarized data, and it plays back into what am I interested in? What data do I want to show? Do I really need to know that this particular potential customer, we've completed 2 tasks with them? Or am I more interested in a summary view? If it's a summary view, what I would want to do is change this from a tabular report to a summary report. Here I can decide what I want to group on, so maybe it's lead owner. I'll hide the details just so we get a cleaner view. And let's run this report. So this is the same data set, but now it looks completely different. Now, instead of knowing that a single potential customer or a single record did this single thing, now I'm looking at it from a higher level. And I would argue that it's much more relevant to me as a sales leader to understand that a team member has done this total number of tasks in a time window than it is for me to know that they've done this number of tasks on a given record, especially on a sales board.
I like to always think of where's the most intelligent place to let the processing happen, right? So while you can do things like summarizing data in Klipfolio, if it's not necessary, always pass the let's call it the calculating or the summarizing to the place in the solution where it's the most efficient. And clearly for us, if we don't need anything other than summary data, that's all we should be pulling in. Now, if you do need to have granular data to do more specific tasks and things inside Klipfolio, like mashing with a plan at a granular level, clearly you'd want to pull granular data in. But always think about the design at the beginning, because that's really going to give you a more powerful, flexible, scalable performance solution.
Totally. So any questions at all while we're in this reporting engine, let me know. I'm happy to help out. But I have saved this report for now. I ran the report and I saved it, and I gave it a name that's going to help me find it later on. So let's take a look at what I can now do with this in Klipfolio. So I've created that report in Salesforce. I now want to make a handshake connection between Klipfolio and that specific report. So I've navigated over to the library. I chose the Data Sources tab, and I chose to create a new data source. I'll search for Salesforce here. And I'm going to create a custom Salesforce data source. So my credentials are saved here. If you're a new user, you'd be prompted to sign in. This is what we call a token in Klipfolio, and you'll see a few of these in your account.
While we're waiting for that, Zach, let me quickly interject with a bit of feedback. One of our listeners has quite rightly pointed out that the matrix report type is a tricky one for the integration. Maybe you want to quickly cover that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. You're right. So the types of reports that are supported in Klipfolio are tabular reports and summary reports. We currently don't support matrix reports, unfortunately. Actually, let's go back to that report I had created. What I often find I need, and it's not a matrix report, but what I'm often able to do is pull in multiple different metrics and multiple levels of grouping. So for instance, let's say, so right now I'm just summarizing on number of clips actually. So I forgot to summarize this number of tasks, but let's do that too. And let's also maybe pull in created date. So I want to pull this in as well. And maybe we'll change the order of our grouping. So maybe I want to group first by dates and then by lead owner. Right now I'm grouping by individual day, but I can instead choose to group by, let's say, calendar quarter. And if I hide the details, you'll see that this is sort of a similarly clean snapshot. Oh, sorry. It's still nicely summarized and a nice clean view, but it's allowed me to pull in multiple levels of grouping, newer levels of data, different metrics. I can have as many things as I want, summarize them in different ways. So that's one of the ways to shore up that gap. But you are right, we don't support matrix reports, unfortunately, or joined reports. So I have chosen to create a custom Salesforce data source. Here's that report that I created. So I'm going to choose it. Perfect. So I get a preview of what this data looks like, and all that summary is just brought over. So I don't see any record level details, but that's fine because I don't need that. One of the really nice things, like Rupert mentioned, we've got our sales boards set to update fairly quickly. You can choose to have them update as quickly as you need, or maybe if it's something like total number of leads on a monthly basis or quarterly basis that's a little bit less urgent, I'd probably say every 24 hours. It's important to note, and I had a good conversation with a customer around this recently, API call considerations on the Salesforce side. So let's say I choose for this report to refresh every 24 hours. What that means is Klipfolio is going to reach back out to Salesforce every 24 hours and pull in the newest version of this data. That action is going to consume one API call in Salesforce. So if I'm very conscious of API calls, maybe I don't want to request my data sources to refresh every minute. That's going to dramatically increase the burden on the Salesforce side. And then over time, as you have multiple different reports and data sources running, all hitting that API, definitely something to be conscious of. So we've got our data. Let's see what we can do with it. All of the standard chart types are supported in Klipfolio. On our sales board, like you saw, I really like one chart type in particular. Screen real estate is really, really important. You want to be super conscious of it. And I find this chart type does a good job of keeping things nice and sized accordingly. So I'll show you how I would approach this. I got my rep names on the x-axis. I'm going to set up a few really quick filters. So I'm going to exclude this user, and I think I'm going to exclude this column header as well. So I choose those two and exclude them. They're now set as a filter. On my series, I'm going to take all the other data in column B, and because I've excluded one, that record is not automatically brought over. So this looks okay. I'm going to remove the legend because I don't need that. Let's call this clip total task this year and last. And what I really like doing is flipping this on its side. I find that visually a user can interpret this data much more quickly. I'll do this one really quick too. We speak to a lot of users who say, I want a pie chart. And what we generally tell them is that a chart like this can be more space efficient and easier to interpret, but it can be the exact same data. So if you're a Klipfolio user, I want to take a quick opportunity to showcase a cool feature too that we're very close to rolling live. It's this new way to reference data. So when I type an ampersand, I can now reference the sort of pre-calculated data that I've done down here. So the values of my pie chart are going to be the same numbers on this series, and the labels are going to be the same number or the same values from our x-axis. So same data, but you can see that this pie chart, it's just a little bit tough for me to tell, how much smaller is the blue slice. It's actually bigger, and it's just difficult to see. So I would highly recommend this bar chart instead of pie charts. And I think on our board, we've made them even smaller, just to be more space efficient. You don't lose much in terms of being able to interpret it. So you can see just how easy that clip building process was. Like Rupert mentioned, because I did that heavy lifting on the Salesforce side. And it was so easy to do because their engine is just really simple, quick, and flexible. Any questions coming through on this topic?
There are some, but I think they're worthy for the Q&A session, not to interrupt here.
Okay, awesome. So let's save this clip and let's look at another option. So let's imagine that a summarized view was not acceptable. So let's undo some of our groupings here. Imagine that we really did need all of this data. And I should have flipped it back from current and previous year. This is going to be a huge data set, but okay, perfect. So let's imagine that I did need all 180,000 records or even something close to that, even if I wanted to do everything that happened this month. And it was returning close to 10,000 records. Like we mentioned, 2,000 row limit when you're working with a report. So what are your options for a larger data set? So the options are to work with what's called Salesforce Object Query Language. A lot of users, a lot of technical users, and definitely Salesforce developers love this approach. They're very comfortable with it. They find it gives them a ton of flexibility. So I'll walk you through how I would approach this. There's sort of two pieces to it. The first thing I want to do, let's see, is I want to tell you really quick about what's called the Salesforce WSDL, WSDL. So this is going to give me a totally complete and comprehensive list of all the fields that I have access to. And it's going to help me build out a SOQL query to pull in that data set that I want. Working with SOQL is a little bit different. It's not so much of a wizard that's drag and drop. You need to know the field names, and this list is going to help you find them. So this is going to show me, so here we see the account object. This shows me every individual field or data point that I have access to under the account object. And this is what I'm going to reference. It also gives me some details, what data to expect. Sometimes I need to reference things like this when I'm building out my query. So let's go through building a data source with SOQL. There's also, really quick, I won't show it, a Salesforce developer console. It can be really helpful, and Salesforce developers will tell you that it's super fast, and it can be helpful. I didn't show it to you because not every user is going to have access to it. But if you've got any Salesforce developers internally, they can be really handy helping you out. If you can ask and get a favor with them, they can be really helpful. They're often familiar with SOQL, and you won't have to sort of struggle with the syntax or how to formulate those queries.
One other suggestion from somebody on the line, which is a good one, as it relates to the report integration that we just previously showed, is that you need to save the report in Salesforce in order for it to show up in the integration list when you log in with Klipfolio.
Yeah, absolutely. That list of reports is all the reports that you have saved and run, and that you have also viewed recently. So if you don't see an older report in that list, hop into Salesforce, open it up, run it, and then come back into Klipfolio, and you will see it in that list. So working with SOQL, these light blue boxes can be really helpful. These are what we call connector templates. So what we're trying to do here is help you get started a little bit more quickly. So we're pre-populating a SOQL query for you. These are all using standard fields. And like we talked about, so many Salesforce deployments are highly customized. But sometimes getting started is the hardest part. So check some of these out. Feel free to build off of them. You don't just need to use them as is. And they're going to help you get that data. SOQL has a similar syntax or similar sort of look and structure to SQL. You know, SOQL helps me select certain data points from a certain Salesforce object where a certain condition is true, optionally. I can also group by and things like that. So let's go back and let's create a custom one. So let's see how quickly we can do this. I am going to reference our list of fields. And I think we want data that's similar to some of the dashboards we had on tasks. So I would like to get a few fields. I want number of tasks. I actually know a few of these fields offhand, but let's see if we can find one of them. So this is one I would want, and if I don't know it, I'm just going to copy it from here and paste it over into Klipfolio. This __ C that you're seeing at the end indicates that this is a custom field. So I want number of tasks, I want the original start date of a customer, I want the lead owner. That should do it. I want that from the account object. And I'm going to set a few conditions here. Let's see. That first business date, I want that to be from this year. I remember sort of, struggling and just figuring out what I could and could not do in terms of syntax. This year works well. Last year is an option for you. One that I like and I often find is helpful is this one, last n months, and then you specify the value for n. So those are a few quick syntax that will work nicely for you. And I found that some of the forums online I found were really quick and easy to help me get some of this. So let's see if this works for us. See one typo.
That's we're gonna run it.
Perfect. So this was successful, and because I selected only a 3 months, this is 1,900 records, not that 10,000 that we were looking at before. But imagine if it was. This is giving us all of that detailed info. Now, if this data structure looks a little bit scary, I'm with you and I understand it, but trust me that it is not nearly as complex as it looks. This is JSON structured data. It's a hierarchical data structure. So think about it as numerous branches of data. So this is one branch. This is showing me one record. And then it's got a few sub-branches. These are giving me other data points. My main branch also has this second sub-branch that has its own. You can sort of think of these as different sheets of a spreadsheet. If I select, well, let's build a clip with it and I'll show you what I mean. So for the purposes of today, I'll choose that this never refreshes, but remember that you've got tons and tons of options. And also remember that you want to give these as clear a name as possible. So if we build a clip with this, let's go with a table. A table is really nice just to see the work that you're doing every step of the way. If I select, let's say, the account owner from one of my branches of data, you can see what happens is I get the account owner from every branch. And the data that's served up by Salesforce is really, really nice and clean. With some other services, we find that it's not, and you need to take additional steps, but this is nice, simple, and easy to work with. So I'm just gonna select these different nodes from our data, and you can see that populate on the chart. So if I wanted to do something like a bar chart where I showed the total number of tasks every day, here's where I need that granular level of data, and this is a good, helpful way of getting it. If you haven't seen some of this functionality live recently, handling of dates is something that we made some major improvements in really, really recently. So instead of doing anything complex in the formula, I can simply change the output format of our dates and group them, and our chart now looks a whole lot simpler. And again, no complexity at all in the formulas. I've just selected that data node from our sheet. So Rupert, any questions coming to mind on something like this?
Well, one of the questions came in is, can you do formulas on SOQL data similarly to the summary reports with tables?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can, and you do it in the exact same way. So if we hop back into this clip and edit it, now, I would love to ask, whether you have seen, if you ask that question about formulas, I want to know if you have seen some of this newer functionality to do some simple manipulation through the wizard, because that's a really nice approach you can take. I can group these account rep names right here, and all of this data is automatically summarized. These dates, I would have to make a change to what happened there. That's my first point. The second point would be absolutely. You can use formulas in the exact same way. So if I want to write some sort of if, just like I might in Excel, if the record name equals Perna, then show Perna, if false, show blank. I might mess up some of the other columns, but absolutely. And speaking to the power and flexibility of Klipfolio, this formula syntax similar to what you'd see in Excel or working with SQL is a huge, huge part of it. Just do make sure to check out some of this new stuff if you're grouping or sorting or setting up conditions. Awesome functionality and much, much simpler. So I haven't left a great deal of time for this, but let's see how quickly we can create something of a leaderboard. So I'm going to delete everything we've done here so far. This is another type of dashboard that we've got internally, and we love it. The team loves it. Like we mentioned, they're competitive people. They want to know how they're stacking up. So let's see what we can do. So the first thing I want to do, and any questions at all, feel free to pop them in. And we can address them while we build this or a little bit later. But the first thing I want to do is pop a little picture at the top of this. We've got all of our team members' names on our website. So I grabbed the image URL. If you don't have that, then another way to get an image is through a pictograph. So what I would do, so the image component requires that I have a URL. The pictograph, on the other hand, lets me upload something. So if I have a team member's image stored locally, I uploaded one in preparation for this. So now I've got this custom image showing in a pictograph. I just want to make it show just once, and I want to change the size to be a little bit bigger. And now this is definitely relevant for any sales discussion. We've got, if it'll work for us, we've got Baldwin from Glengarry Glen Ross, Coffees for Closers Only. So if that's what you need to do, go with the pictograph if you need to upload your image. So the other things we would want in our leaderboard, quick labels. And what I want to do here is show you that we can build this once, and this is going to take us a couple minutes to do this first time. But after that, we can clone it really nice and easily. So bear with me for a moment and chime in with any questions at all. Copy paste is a great tool to use in the editor. So I had a label here that said Dylan. I just copied it. I just want to change what it says this time. So what we want to measure is number of tasks. So I'm going to use a gauge. Here I'm going to choose all this data from column B. So right now it's totaling it. But this is just Dylan. So I want to set up a filter. I want to set up a filter on this column, and I won't explain exactly why, but hidden data is where I can set up that filter. So I want to just exclude all these other team members, only choose Dylan. Now we're just showing his numbers. I can sort of change how large or small some of these things are, but I'll leave it as is. So he's got 66 tasks so far. And what we have fairly recently that we love, someone like Rupert loves seeing this, and the team loves this as well. I want to know what 66 means. I don't want to do the math on 66 versus 80. Just do it for me. So I'm going to use that newer functionality that we talked about to show the, let's see, current value divided by target value. Might not have done that quite right. I think I took a small misstep. This should just be a nice percentage.
Let's not try and fix this here. Let's just move on.
Perfect. So if I had gotten this right, what I want to do is save it. Save it once. We've gotten our first clip down. Now I want to edit it, and what I'm going to do is make changes to it and then save them as a copy. So instead of that first picture that we wanted to show, let's show a different one. And all we need to do is change this image and change the criteria for our filter. And now we've just cloned this clip and made it accurate for a new team member. Perfect. So to do this for the entire team wouldn't take me too long, and we would love to help you guys out with this. So what we talked about and what we're going to do after the call is everyone who joined today, we're going to do a really quick, simple draw, and we're going to pick a few individuals that we'd love to offer some free consulting time, working with you to set up something like this, or set up anything else that you'd love to show from Salesforce.
So we're in the interest of time, we're going to show a couple of quick things, and then I want to turn it over to the Q&A. We will spill over, it looks like, the full hour a little bit, and we'll keep going for those that want to keep going. One thing that came up in the questions earlier is, what do we do once we've got these dashboards built, Zach? So if you want to move down to slide 11 there. For those of you familiar with Klipfolio, this isn't new news, but once you've got these dashboards built, particularly for people who are new to Klipfolio, you can schedule the delivery of a PDF version of the dashboard on a regular basis to users in Klipfolio. You can push them up to Wallboards, which we'll talk about in just a second. There's a native mobile apps for iOS and Android, and obviously the main place people consume dashboards is on their desktop. So all of these options are available. You can publish one dashboard and push it out to all of those different delivery mechanisms. And let's talk specifically about Wallboards, because I think from a sales context, that's where we see a lot of use. So one of the One of the third-party applications we use, and there's a number that allow you to do this, is a company called RiseVision. And RiseVision is a free web application, a web service that allows you to take published dashboards from Klipfolio and send them to many different TVs on many different schedules in a many-to-many relationship. So we ourselves use this internally, and using just a URL for each of these dashboards we've published, we have 6 or 8 TVs around the office, all on different schedules, all consuming one or a subset of those dashboards, and it's all done with just logging into the RiseVision account, again, which is a free web service. There are lots of other services as well. We're loosely affiliated with RiseVision. The reason that we're bringing it up is that RiseVision is the solution that we use ourselves, and this story was really about what we do. I'll just show you 2 quick things. RiseVision allows you to create displays, which are really just the pairing of a TV, we use a compute stick, like a $100 compute stick with a Windows 10 on it, an Lenovo Idea stick. It puts a player on that stick, pairs it with the TV, then you register that with your RiseVision account, and then you're basically sending schedules to TVs. And those schedules can be just a list of URLs. That's what we do. It's just that simple. So if anyone wants to know more about this, there's a great document in the links that we're going to share in the slides which talks about this deployment as well. But it's how we use the dashboards to push them to the TVs internally. So if you want to just quickly show a couple of slides, Zach, the next one will be next steps. And you'll see this in the slides. If you're not already doing a trial, you would just go to app2klipfolio.com. If you're interested in more discussions with us internally, please just reach out to your sales rep or success@klipfolio.com. Also in the slides, when we share them, you're going to see a list of very useful links. This talks about some key functionality as it relates to Salesforce and Klipfolio together, our community, our help center, the work with RiseVision. It's all there. These are links straight to our help center. But you can also go to the help center and just search. Okay, with the 3 minutes we have left, let's open it up to the Q&A. We do have a couple of questions that have come up. Quite a lot of feedback on the SQL, the SQL side of the discussion. And I would like to just answer the one question to say, when do we recommend to use one or the other? The reality is that, as Zach's slides point out, the report integration is super, super simple. And you can do a lot of the thinking in Salesforce before you pull the data in. But it does have the limitation of the 2,000 rows. If you're comfortable in SQL, you can absolutely use that method as well. One thing we didn't show was pulling a clip in from the gallery. Maybe you could do that while I'm just wrapping up this point.
Yeah, well, I would actually go deeper on that question. The gallery is awesome, and you should check it out. Add a clip gallery. You can find Salesforce in this list, and there are some really nice options. Actually, sure, we can do that really quick. So let's get this accounts by country clip, and maybe by U.S. state. Perfect. So I've added a few of them. They just load in sample data mode, and if I want to resize, like we said, screen real estate, really important and something to think about. So you only want to give something as much space as it needs. And then I would just go through the process of connecting my data. So the process for each clip takes about 30 seconds. And I love these because they're great to get started quickly with. However, the biggest caveat is that, like we talked about, because most Salesforce deployments are so heavily customized, often you'll quickly want to go a little bit deeper. On your question on SQL, when to use it, I would only add that if you're able to overcome a little bit of an initial learning curve, we're happy to help you approach it. We can share some great resources on the approaches we would take and go in more detail than I got today. I think the biggest single advantage is that it gives you all this raw data with which you can do whatever you need. So this is one clip that we didn't show. And I need the raw data to do this. I want to show what country these leads are coming from, and it's more visible on the dashboard itself. I want to show what rep, whether or not they converted, the conversion percentage, but I also want to allow the users to filter by a date range. And I also want to allow the users to be able to filter by rep. So all of those requirements mandate that I have access to the raw data. So I would say flexibility is one of the biggest things that SoQuel provides above and beyond. And one question that we answered privately, SoQuel does not have any limit on 2,000 records. It does have the normal limit of 10 megabytes for a data source. Any other questions you noticed, Rupert, that we didn't have time to address?
So one question just came in. Does Salesforce have an image library that can be used to make the image manipulation more dynamic? So just to be clear, the posting of the image in the Klipfolio clips is more of a Klipfolio thing than a Salesforce thing. Can you push sort of the use of an image URL from a dynamic perspective?
Yeah, if you have the logic behind it. So let's say you've got a spreadsheet with 20 image URLs in one column, and then you've got countries in a different column. You can make it so that if one of your users logs in from Germany, they see the picture they should see. If one of your users logs in from the US, they see the picture they should see. So you can do those things dynamically. You just have to have access to the data. We can help you approach that in the right way.
Also, just for questions that came in that we on the chat that we haven't answered either verbally or through the chat itself, we will be following up with every question that we got during this presentation. So don't fret if you haven't heard us cover either live or responded to you in the chat as well.
Another question that we answered quickly, just one-on-one, but it was really good, and you touched on it right at the start, but let's revisit that because I think it's one of the biggest messages we want to share today. I'm a new Salesforce user, so I'm sorry if this is too basic. I like what you're showing, but why would someone use your solution instead of the native Salesforce dashboards? You want to field that one, Rupert? Well,
so there are many reasons. Certainly, if you're comfortable creating dashboards in Salesforce, we do it ourselves. It's a great tool, and it's got lots of flexibility, as we've seen, in terms of getting the information that you need. Now, to be fair, that object approach that they use really makes it very frustrating for people who are just consuming information, because they just want their information. They don't want to know about objects and why this object doesn't include that object and that sort of stuff. And Klipfolio allows you to, let's call it, create a smooth data surface between the complexity of the Salesforce data and the delivery of the information to the people who need it. So you can, with Klipfolio, deliver information to people who are just consumers of information, A, without them needing a Salesforce account, and B, without them understanding that the data itself underneath is complex. The second primary reason why you might want to use Klipfolio with Salesforce data is that although we've married a lot of data in Salesforce, you can mash up data in a near real-time calculation engine with Klipfolio. So you could pull live data coming from Salesforce with data coming from a plan or another system to drive one of these visualizations. And that's one of the key value propositions of Klipfolio, monitoring and mashing and calculating data in near real time.
That's something we're doing extensively on almost all of our production dashboards. Our sales board shows a lot of data around leads. That lives in Marketo. And like Rupert mentioned, it is synced over, but sometimes you need the granular data from Marketo or granular billing data from Zuora. So we're constantly using multiple data sets and mashing them together into a single clip.
I also have a customer answering that question for me right on the chat, and so I'll share with you what they've said. And thank you very much, Carol. Number one, Klipfolio is much more customizable and beautiful. Thank you for that. Number two, it doesn't time out and automatically refresh. And user interactions with filters is much faster and broader in Klipfolio. So thank you so much for that feedback, and we love it when our customers tell our story.
So this is awesome, guys. Really appreciate all these great questions. We unfortunately didn't have time for all of them, but you have our commitment 100%. That we'll follow up on each and every one, and we'll send the responses. We'll send the responses out to everyone, along with, like Rupert mentioned, the slides and the recording. And also, like we said, really quickly, but we're really pumped to follow through on this one too. We're gonna take the names of everyone who joined today, do a really quick draw, and we would be thrilled to offer some free consulting time. A lot of you guys sound like experts, so maybe you might not need our technical help. Maybe we can just kick around some ideas, but we would love to work with you and see what we can help you put together with Salesforce.
Thanks for investing the time with us today. This is just the beginning, I think, of us telling this story. The demand has been completely outstripped our expectations. Way more registrations to this webinar than we expected. And so expect us to double down on this topic as we move forward.
Thanks again, guys, and have a fantastic rest of the day.
Bye now.
Bye for now.